How do you explain her?
Kobe Bryant with a ponytail. Seriously, like apex predator, great basketball player who wants to steal your soul.
Every building she goes into is a different energy.
What's going on, y'all? It's your girl, Cordy. Welcome to the channel if you're new. Listen, Amber Cox really stepped out and gave us a real look behind the curtain at the Indiana Fever front office. And I'm not talking surface level either. She went deep. She broke down the moves they've been making, the long-term vision for the team, and exactly why certain draft decisions played out the way they did. She even addressed why Justine Pissett is currently in that DP spot. That's the kind of transparency fans don't usually get, and she was just letting it fly. Now, we're definitely about to dive into all of that, but before we do, make sure you hit that like button if you're rocking with the content. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything coming up. So, boom. I'm downstairs watching the NBA playoffs, just chillin', and then I see this alert pop up. Amber Cox is doing an interview with IndyStar, and she's really speaking freely about everything going on behind the scenes. At that point, I already knew we had something to talk about. So let's go ahead and get straight into it.
You guys are in a unique situation because you're the only team that has two players eligible for Epic in the next 2 years. Just how did knowing that Caitlin's eligible for potentially a max or even a super max next year kind of inform how you worked in free agency this year, kind of wanting some financial flexibility in that way?
Yeah, for sure. You have to plan for it. We know we want those two around for their careers, the duration of their careers. And this really gives us the opportunity to plan now. You know, whereas under the old CBA, it would be coming off of their rookie scale contract, and then you're going into restricted free agency, and that's only a couple of years. So this gives us a longer runway to really plan. So we love this. And, you know, obviously now we've got Aaliyah's done. We'll start those conversations with Caitlin and her camp. And again, it just really puts us in a position to be able to plan accordingly moving forward, to put the pieces around those two.
The training camp starting, this weekend, you have 8 guards coming in this year, but you also have 3 of them coming off injuries. Obviously, Caitlin played in FIBA in March, but Sophie Cunningham, Ty Harris haven't played game minutes since their injuries. Just how do you take that into account when making those additional signings or training camp signings for some additional depth going for these couple weeks?
Yeah, I mean, you have to factor it in. I mean, to your point, we were fortunate that Caitlin was able to get some gameplay and, very casually got back on the court and won the MVP at the qualifier. So happy for her. She's looked great. She's worked incredibly hard to be in a good spot from, the first day of training camp. But to your point, Sophie and Ty have not played in game action. So what we don't want to do is overload someone that is coming back from injury. We expect them to be, available and practicing, but there's a difference between, not playing games or playing games. And so, that factored into some of the decisions in terms of having some guard depth to make sure that we are allowing these players to really ramp up in an appropriate fashion. I think, one of the learnings from last year was we don't want to play players 40 minutes every night. This schedule is incredibly difficult. We have a few back-to-backs, and even when they aren't back-to-backs, we're playing every other day just about. So being able to create a rotation that does have some depth. We have a lot of versatility in this group. I'm really excited about that, so that we're fresh when we get to the playoffs. And, Kelsey Mitchell's wheels don't fall off this time. That's the goal. I think that was really a point of emphasis in this free agency to make sure that we were really smart about ensuring the health and well-being of our players throughout the course of the season.
Obviously, how did that play into the draft as well? With Raven Johnson coming in at number 10, for her to provide that depth to Caitlin, to Kelsey, and just have that rotation you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, look, the 10th pick is an interesting spot in the draft because you are a bit at the mercy of who is picking in front of you. We knew we were going to get somebody really great, but I said this on draft night. I really didn't expect Raven to be there. She was someone that, I kind of had in that 4, 5, 6 range. I think a point guard like her that can come in and run a team with great leadership, great competitive drive, obviously on the defensive end of the floor is really, really elite already. And then you see how her game has grown, shot almost 40% from 3-point this year. I mean, we just really loved everything about her. So when she was sitting there at 10, of course we were going to take her. So yes, it adds tremendous depth. But because we have Ty Harris, because, obviously we've got Caitlin back in healthy, it gives her a chance to really grow. For every rookie coming in this league, there is a learning curve. It is faster, it is more physical. So this gives Raven the opportunity to step into camp, to learn from our veterans. And, we expect her to contribute, no doubt about it. But, it gives her a chance to really get comfortable and, find her way. And also our coaches a chance to figure out where they're going to put her in the rotation.
Second round pick, Justine Passat, was your first developmental player signing. Just what went into that decision, kind of just signing her directly to the development squad rather than a standard contract and having her work it out in camp?
Yeah, we wanted to lock Justine in. She is a bit of a unicorn in that she led the SEC in 3-point shooting and she's 6'4". So, she still has some growth areas, as all rookies do coming into the league. But we really want to see what she can do as a part of this roster. So what signing her now allows us to do is, instead of putting her in a standard player contract, we get to the end of camp and waiving her, then you put her on the waiver wire for somebody else to pick her up. She is already with us. And so it gives us a bit more control over her destiny. If somebody were to come and offer her a regular standard contract at some point, we would have the opportunity to then make a decision if we wanted to move her up into the regular roster. So it's an interesting new sort of scenario that we're all navigating. But we think a lot of Justine. We believe in her ability. Again, she's got an elite talent in terms of her 3-point shooting ability. So we want to see how that really plays out for us.
All right, so this is the first thing that really stood out to me. Amber Cox basically made it clear they're trying to build this thing around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. That's the foundation. So naturally, the next question is, where does that leave Kelsey Mitchell? Because when you start talking about contracts, it gets tight real fast. A Supermax is eating up around 20% of the cap, and if Caitlin eventually commands that type of money too, you're looking at a huge chunk tied up in just 2 players. Now, I know the cap will rise over time, but still, there's only so much flexibility. 3 max-level players? That's tough to pull off. So does Kelsey take less to stay, or do the Fever lean fully into the younger core? That's a real decision coming up. But one thing is clear, they want Caitlin and Aaliyah there long-term, no question. And I'm not gonna lie, it feels like this front office is still a little shook from last season. You can tell they're planning carefully, trying to avoid those same issues again. When I look at the roster construction, I keep coming back to the guards. I really think they're going to end up carrying 5 true guards. And if you factor in players like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham, who can slide between the 2 and 3, you're basically looking at 7 players in that guard/wing mix. That's a lot. Now, I do understand not running Caitlin's into the ground. Playing her 40 minutes every night isn't sustainable, especially if you want her fresh for the postseason. So yeah, depth matters, but at the same time, it feels a little overloaded. Some of those minutes are going to be hard to distribute. From a roster building standpoint, I probably would have leaned more into size. When you look at the league right now, dominant bigs are getting paid. Aaliyah Boston, Asia Wilson, those are franchise anchors. And coming out of South Carolina, that pipeline for bigs has been strong. That's just how I see it. Not a knock on Raven Johnson, I think she can carve out a solid career, but if it were me, I might have prioritized more front court presence. Now, let's talk about Justine Pissett, because that situation is interesting. Keeping her on a DP deal is smart for development, but here's the risk. What happens if another team comes calling? Are you ready to bring her up to the main roster? Because I really believe she's going to show out in training camp. Her shooting, her fit alongside Caitlin's playmaking, it makes sense. She could prove she belongs. So then what? Do you shift someone else down to protect her? That's a tough call. But I do like that they're thinking long-term with her. She feels like a potential steal. Looking at the overall training camp roster, I see a core group forming. Kelsey Mitchell, Caitlin, Boston, Lexi, Sophie, Raven, and others filling those rotation spots. That's likely your 12. But again, it circles back to balance. 7 guards is heavy. I get the injury concerns from last year. I get wanting insurance. But at some point, you sacrifice size and versatility. Amber Cox did mention they want to use those DP spots more for development rather than just emergency depth, which is a smart shift. And with limited cap space left, this might be the group they ride with unless a trade happens. So yeah, I'm curious. Who do y'all think actually makes that final cut? And more importantly, did they get the roster balance right? Let me know.